We don't take part in this, and we're not going to. And we're not going to go away. And we're the rightful owners of this land.
So South African farmers are fleeing to America because they allege that they are dealing with violence. And I'm confused because Donald Trump just gave them a fast track to become a U.S. citizen. He called what's happening over there genocide. Genocide? So we got to be all the way real here. Why them? Why do they get the fast track over here to become citizens? There's people all over the world that's dealing with worse conditions than this. Refugees from wars, famines, real genocide. But they're not getting this special treatment like them. No, sir. So what makes this different for Donald Trump? This clearly looked like favoritism. The ultimate protection for the complexion. Trump, the same person that was trying to ban certain people from coming over here from over there. Y'all remember?
They're poisoning the blood of our country. All over the world, they're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia. Mexico sends its people. They're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. They don't speak the language. They don't have the culture. These are stone cold killers. They'll walk into your kitchen. They'll cut your throat. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Haiti has a tremendous AIDS problem. Many of those people will probably have AIDS, and they're coming into our country.
They took the criminals out of Caracas, and they put them along your border, and we have to live with these animals. Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. They're rough people. In many cases, from jails, prisons, from mental institutions, insane asylums. You know, insane asylum, that's Silence of the Lambs stuff. I told them not to let the Syrians in because we have no idea who they are. They could be ISIS, and they might not be, but they could be ISIS.
Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed. It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me.
Look, I wasn't even planning to talk about this today, but after seeing this news, I had to say something. Because what I'm about to show y'all, it's wild. There's no way we can make this stuff up. The things Donald Trump does when he's in office, man, make it make sense. Donald Trump just gave fast-track refugee status to a group of South Afrikaners, but when that plane landed, every single person getting off was white. Not one blackface. Not one. And we're supposed to believe that's just a coincidence?
Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed. It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me.
He stood there talking about this could be anyone from any background, any color. But come on now. Y'all see the footage. You see who's getting let in and who keeps getting shut out. It don't lie. Meanwhile, ICE is still out here ripping families apart, dealing with black and brown folks like we're disposable. People who've been living here, working, raising kids, gone. But then we turning around and flying in white South Afrikaners, smiling and waving, being welcomed like honored guests. Let's not pretend we don't see what's going on. We're watching racism operate in plain sight, just dressed up in suits and paperwork. This ain't just about immigration. This is about privilege, about who this system protects and who it doesn't. So I want y'all to really watch these clips. Pay attention to what you're seeing, because this ain't just policy. This is a message, and it says a lot about who's valued in this country and who's not.
Well, the Trump administration has made it virtually impossible for many refugees to come to the United States, but the president is making a special exception for a group of 59 white South Africans who have now been granted refugee status. They arrived at Dulles Airport just outside of Washington, D.C. on a charter flight that was paid for by the U.S. government. The Trump administration approved their applications in just under 3 months. That is much faster than the normal process, which can take years. The president and his top advisor, Elon Musk, who is South African, have made allegations that white farmers in the country are being discriminated against under land reform policies. Now, South Africa's government says those policies are necessary to remedy the legacy of apartheid and calls the allegations of discrimination unfounded and completely false. The Episcopal Church, which has worked for decades to resettle refugees, says they will not be helping this time around, calling it painful to watch one group of refugees receive preferential treatment over many others who have been waiting in refugee camps or in dangerous conditions for years. But the White House says this is the beginning of a much larger relocation effort, guys.
Welcome. Welcome to the United States of America. We respect what you have had to deal with these last few years. We respect the long tradition of your people and what you have accomplished over the years.
This is not true. It's a lie. There is no genocide of white South Africans. And let me make this clear for the benefit of those of you who are not South Africans. I'm a white South African, but I'm not an Afrikaner. I'm not a Boer, as people say. But even the Afrikaner people, the vast majority of Afrikaners don't want to leave this country. All Afrikaners and white people have a very good life in South Africa. We are doing fine. Thank you very much. We do not need to leave, and we do not need refugee status from Trump. So, why has Trump decided to grant refugee status to a group of Afrikaners? Well, he likes keeping in the media, but I think that it really has more to do with his friend Elon Musk, who we remember is a former South African. He has not been granted a license to operate his Starlink internet here in South Africa. And he has probably done this whole thing to provoke the bear, to create some kind of acrimonious situation and force the South African government to pay more attention to him. But let me just reiterate this. The group of South Africans who claim to be refugees from a white genocide, it's quite frankly an embarrassment.
And let's not forget who these white South Afrikaners really are. These ain't just random people looking for safety. Nah, their families are the same ones who showed up in South Africa, took land that wasn't theirs, and built power off the backs of our people, off of black labor, off of stolen land. Let's keep it all the way real. They didn't inherit that land. They took it. Through colonization, through violence, through apartheid. That land never belonged to them in the first place. So how do you go from stealing land in Africa to now getting fast-tracked into America like you some kind of victim? Meanwhile, the people who actually suffered under that system, black South Africans, the ones who fought, died, and survived apartheid, they're nowhere in sight. Nobody's flying them in. Nobody's rolling out red carpets for them. So we're watching history repeat itself. The colonizers keep getting rewarded, and the people they harmed keep getting ignored. It's the same playbook, just a different country. And we're supposed to be quiet about that? Nah, not today. Now check this out. Here's a guy who really thinks he's done nothing wrong, standing there bold, saying the land is rightfully his, like colonization never happened, like apartheid was just a chapter that don't count. Watch this, and tell me this don't make your blood boil.
There's a certain amount of people which wants to create a nation of unity. And then there's us, the Boers. We don't take part in this, and we're not going to. And we're not going to go away. And we're the rightful owners of this land. So, so that doesn't mean we doesn't see the sunshine over other people. Okay, if you go back in history, you would actually see that the Boers have negotiated with the tribal chiefs and the kings, and we have see them as equal, and we have give them their peace. Okay. Now.
Now carry on. We can hear you.
If we want to share one country, we must first accept the realities.
Help me understand something. If we're going to live in the same country, but you don't want unity, how do we do it?
We never wanted unity.
No, I accept what you're saying.
Okay.
I accept that. That's what you said. What I'm saying is, then how do we live in one country?
Oh, that's very easy, okay? We can live in this country happily if we have proper borders. So if the Boers have their land, and the Tswanas have their land, and the Zulus have their land, we do not want to mix. Leave Joburg for the cosmopolitans and all this type like
Sounds like apartheid, though.
Yeah, properly, yes.
Okay.
This South African farmer bullshit, which is the most blatantly obvious racist shit ever. It is blatantly obvious the way that we treat white South Africans, who are, by the way, for the most part, and I am generalizing here, some of the wealthiest people are well-to-do people in the country. They speak their language. They own most of the land and the property. And somehow they're being granted a fast track to become Americans while they're trying to cut down on immigration from other countries. You know, you get that from where? From the brown people. On March 7th, Trump took to Truth Social to announce he is offering white South African farmers, quote, a rapid pathway to U.S. citizenship, pointing out that South Africa's new land reform push signed into law last year, which lets the government take land without compensation if the property is not being used and there's no intention to either develop or make money from it. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you some context here. They're not just taking land away from white South African farmers. White South Africans, about 9% of the population, owned 87% of the fertile land. Okay? Today, black South Africans make up more than 90% of the population, and they only hold about 4% of all privately owned land. So what they're trying to do is say, hey, we need to fix an historical injustice and figure out if you're not using that land to farm, then we need to have some of that land, not taking all of your entire farm. That's not what's happening. And we need to what? There needs to be equity. And now people are crying because the playing field is being leveled. And so therefore it is now discrimination.
I did my research and I found out how racist this new administration truly is. This is some of the most racist shit I've ever heard of. In 1913, South Africa had white supremacists running the country, and they created apartheid, which created segregation and discrimination laws against black South Africans. It was whites only South African businesses, whites only South African movie theaters, whites only South African swimming pools. South Africa was on that racist just like America treated black folks. So in 1913, white South Africans took over South Africa with force. White South Africans stole land owned by black South Africans. Fast forward to 2025. 3 of Trump's biggest supporters are 3 of the most richest men on the planet. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and David Sachs are 3 billionaires that fully support Trump. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and David Sachs are all white South Africans who were born in South Africa, white supremacy, and apartheid. Elon Musk is a white South African white supremacist. South Africa now has a black president. This South African president wants equality in South Africa. He wants the racism to stop, and he wants everyone to be treated equally. Trump and Elon Musk heard about this black South African president wanting equality. Trump immediately stopped all funding to South Africa. There are only 7% of white people in South Africa. But those white people own 70% of the land in South Africa because they stole most of that land from black South Africans. The new black South African president put a new law in place to right the wrongs that were done to black South Africans that had land stolen from them. Just like when European settlers stole America from the natives. Because the South African president wants to give back land that white South Africans stole from black South Africans, that's why Trump and his administration are saying white South Africans are being persecuted and done wrong. But white South Africans are not under persecution.
I mean, the facts are there is no systematic prosecution of white Afrikaner farmers. For the Trump administration to take the view that there's somehow systematic persecution, it's actually problematic and troublesome and damning on the way the Trump administration is receiving its information.
How are they being prosecuted when they the ones who stole the land from black South Africans? Black South Africans are the ones who originally owned that land. What's so wrong with doing right and giving black South Africans their land back? But see, this is the thing. South Africa is not even seizing land like Donald Trump is saying they are. It's a lawful process that's handled in the courts of South Africa. If someone stole land from you and your family, wouldn't you want it back?
Make this make sense. Trump wants to get rid of all the black and brown immigrants in this country, but yet he wants to import white refugees from South Africa. Make it make sense.
Racist white people trying to pretend like white people are experiencing some kind of racial oppression are some of the funniest people on the planet. I've been on this app for 5 years, and for 5 years I've heard this 1,000 times, and 0%, not 1, 2, 10, 15, 0% of the people that have made the statement talk about it on their page. They don't hold the right-wing people that they follow accountable for not talking about it on their page, because they also don't talk about it. But the biggest indicator that this is not happening is that the richest man in the world, who owns one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, seems to be absolutely quiet about this. We've all heard Elon Musk talking about government efficiency. We've heard him talking about cars. We've heard him talking about spaceships, more than he's ever uttered a word about the oppression that white South Africans are experiencing. So instead of coming on the people's page who actually speak out against racial oppression, go to your favorite right-winger, go to Elon Musk, and yell at them about why they are not talking about this totally not made up oppression.
I hope y'all ready for what this means. If you think the racism in this country is out of control, wait till you see what the white South Africans are going to bring to this country. President Trump signed an executive order in February granting an exception for white South Africans to be coming here as refugees. Now, nothing's wrong with their country. They're not seeking asylum. They're not being mistreated in South Africa. They are told that they are going to treat everybody equally, and they don't want that because remember, they colonized South Africa. And now they're gonna be in your neighborhoods. Here they come, taking over your neighborhoods. They have refugee status. They're gonna seek asylum here. They're gonna get all kinds of social benefits. But that's okay as long as they're not Venezuelan. That's okay as long as they're not Mexican. It's okay as long as they're not from Cuba. But since they're white, bring them on over. We'll take them. No worries.
White people with less than $100,000 and that own a red hat. Make sense of this for me. America first, but make sense of this for me. The front half of a senator that's running this country, there's a good joke about Elon being in the back half with a puppet, is currently expediting refugees from South Africa to America with short and long-term housing while you're still poor. Before they helped you, like, anybody with less than 100 grand is poor. You're still poor. I know there's different levels. You're still in the group that is not their friend circle. Probably never will be. Likely will never be. Does it hurt or bother you that this group that's putting America first is now putting South Africans first, who, by the way, got there from where? Not America. They're actually Dutch, French, and German colonists. Make this one make sense to me. I feel like you can't just say, like, they're refugees, they need our help, because if that was the case, is it different because they're white? Just say that then. Just say that. What's that song by YG and Nipsey Hussle again?
When I say certain people have the complexion for protection, this is what I mean. These are the white South African refugees that are coming to the United States after Elon Musk lied and spread misinformation on Twitter, saying that these white South Africans were experiencing G-side by the political party in charge. Here's the timeline of events. On July 31st, 2023, Elon Musk tweets, "They are openly pushing for G-side of white people in South Africa." Then he tags the president of South Africa and says, "Why do you say nothing?" So as you can see, Elon Musk has been fueling this fire and spreading this misinformation for years now. Fast forward, Elon Musk spends $300 million getting Donald Trump elected. Donald Trump wins. And the first day in office, January 20th, 2025, when he gets inaugurated, Trump signs an executive order ending the refugee admissions program. An executive order that basically says the United States lacks the ability to absorb large number of migrants, and in particular, refugees, because of the availability of resources for Americans. Essentially declaring that the refugees coming to the United States were competing for resources against Americans. Elon Musk then uses the power of being in Trump's ear all the fucking time and up his ass and turns Trump against South Africa. Even though the claims of white G-side are ruled not real by a South African court, literally 4 days later signs an executive order called Addressing Egregious Actions in the Republic of South Africa, where he cuts off all funding to South Africa. Then he fast-tracks white South African citizenship while rejecting all other refugees. Here's where the story gets better. Here's where I say that they had the complexion for protection, because these white South Africans are descendants of mainly Dutch and French colonial settlers who first came to South Africa more than 300 years ago. They were at the heart of the apartheid government that systematically oppressed non-whites. Yeah, they're the ones who get to come here on an air-conditioned plane, walking through the airport, welcome to the United States, given flags for a fucking photo op. Meanwhile, the Afghan refugees who helped the U.S. military during the U.S. military operations in Afghanistan are in dangerous limbo after the Trump administration ordered a pause on the refugee resettlement program. Meanwhile, this is how Black Haitian immigrants are welcomed to the United States. Meanwhile, other refugee populations that are non-white, this is how they come to the United States. I'm not saying that motherfuckers gotta look like their story or look like they struggled, but there's a clear differentiation between people who have valid concerns, valid refugee claims, and seeking asylum versus these motherfuckers that are coming in shorts and look like they're well-fed and look like they have good clothes on their fucking backs. And if you really want to deconstruct all the fucking hypocrisy all the fucking way, why is it that the reason that the U.S. refugee resettlement program was scrapped was because the refugees were competing for resources against Americans, yet the literal website that's helping them resettle into the United States is openly saying that these white South Africans are going to receive financial assistance, a one-time federal grant, $1,275 per person, cash assistance, supplemental nutrition assistance program, food assistance, food stamps, housing assistance, medical assistance, work and employment support. And to top it all off, they won't have to even prove that they were being persecuted. The complexion for motherfucking protection.
Well, I have got some hot tea in the brew for you, baby. Now grab your cup and pull on up because we're about to break it down expeditiously. If you remember last week, I did a video called A Lesson is in Session. As a matter of fact, I think it was Saturday, just like today, but just a week back. Either way, in that video, I broke down their real plans, the white man. And now he's so very terrified that there's not enough white here on his side. Yes, it just so happens on Monday, we're getting a whole plane load of white into town. From out of town. Yes, they told you the mass deportations that we were doing to get rid of the brown had nothing to do with them being brown, but it had to do with the fact that they were all criminals, violent, in fact. And then they started deporting grandmothers and grandfathers and even babies and 2-year-olds too. I wonder what a 2-year-old could have possibly done to you. But either way, back in February, he pulled out his Sharpie one night and he signed an executive order to put some whites on a flight. And Monday is that day. Here's some receipts for you because this story is absolutely true. The Trump administration is chartering a plane to bring the first white South Africans to the USA as refugees, baby. Like I said on Monday, I do believe to Dallas is where they will be flying in on their flight. All you gotta be is white. Yes, tell me again how it's all about violent criminals and has nothing to do with their skin color, my friends, even though we're deporting 2-year-old children today. Even kids with cancer have to get on a plane and depart out of our way. Yes, I don't want to hear another Republican, a Republicant, and a Republicunt come at me and try to pull some it's not racial stunt. And by the way, y'all remember that little rumor that was about Alonia Muskrat over there in Texas building a little city? Yes, all the MAGA were getting excited. They thought they were going to be able to move to Alonia's new city that was being built with homes and even schools. Well, apparently, boo, that city wasn't built for you, but for more South African immigrants that are white, like Alonia Muskrat. Oh, well. I guess they're doing more for whites that don't live here than they're actually doing for whites that live here, as they're stripping your rights of due process away from you. But the brown can't stay around. And by the way, if you are in South Africa today and you think you're going to board that plane and come over here and everything's going to be fine, honey, you are insane. Don't believe that lie. You will still be outnumbered here if you just so happen to think it's okay to hate the black and brown, dear. Anyway, please, please share this video because I think we need to get it out into the everywheres. And one more thing. Apparently these are supposed to be farmers coming here to plow the land. Maybe you should look at what, well, that orange man is currently doing to farmers who actually live in this land. Okay.
So now y'all saw it for yourselves. The same people whose families took land from black South Africans getting welcomed into America like royalty, while we still out here fighting for basic rights, still getting deported, still getting profiled, still getting left behind, and they wonder why we stay angry. They wonder why we keep calling it out, because it's never just about one flight or one policy. It's about the system, a system that keeps choosing power over justice, that keeps protecting colonizers while pushing our people to the side. But we're not going to stay quiet. We're not going to act like we don't see it. And we're sure not going to let it slide without saying something. So if this video spoke to you, hit the like button, share it with somebody who needs to see the truth, and drop a comment. I want to hear from y'all. How does this make you feel? What do you think we need to do to change this narrative? Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, because we're not done speaking truth. Not today, not ever. Stay woke, stay loud, and stay proud.